Your judgment of how the BBC handled those allegations at the time?
Appalling, absolutely appalling. The producer said to me, "Mark, have you ever heard of Jimmy Savile being a child sex offender?" And I said, "No." I said, "He's a strange looking bloke, but I've never known any allegation against him." He said, "Well, there is. He is an offender, but at the moment, we can't put our report on television because he's still alive." And anyway, he dies not that long after that. And I remember him phoning me up. Marion Jones said to me, "Mark, we're now going to make this program. Could you help us in relation to some of the information that I think you could probably get hold of, being an ex-police officer?" And I started to look at it, and quite quickly, the BBC Newsnight decided they weren't going to run the story. And in essence, the reason they didn't want to run the story was because they didn't see an opportunity where they could be critical of the police for failing to do an investigation. I said to them, "Hang on a minute, but the issue here is that Jimmy Savile is a paedophile. That's what's in question, not whether or not the police failed. That's secondary." Anyway, as a result of what we all now know, the BBC Newsnight didn't run it. And I said to them, "I'm going to keep with it. I'm going to keep going." And for the following 12 months, I worked very closely with ITV lawyers and with my producer, Leslie Gardner. And between us, we managed to pull together a program. We took it to another level compared to what BBC Newsnight had. We found new victims, we moved it away from the Duncroft Children's Home. And the result was the program that broadcast on the 3rd of October 2012. And the impact thereafter has changed policies, it's changed procedures, it's enabled other individuals, to both high profile and everyday walk of life individuals, to be arrested. And, in the words of your opening statement, it is about saying to people, if you committed an offence, you should be worried that one day that knock on the door will come and you will be finally hauled to justice. The Savile exposures sat on the front pages for 41 consecutive days. That's how big the story is. And even now, we've got the BBC making a documentary, right or wrong in regards to that. But it still continues to make headlines, and rightly so, because what he was allowed to get away with was horrific.
Your judgment of how the BBC handled those allegations at the time?
Appalling, absolutely appalling. I mean, I don't think you can wrap it up with anything other than that. I remember giving a talk about it not long after, and I always say that if there was a way to mismanage communications, if there was a way to not deal with managing risk, the BBC did it. They got it all completely and utterly wrong. The day of the broadcast, there was a very senior BBC executive who said to a very senior ITV executive, the ITV executive told me, they discussed this programme, and the BBC executive said, "I don't think there's going to be much coming from it. I think it will probably wash over quite quickly." And the BBC exec said, "I don't think that's going to happen." Of course, it didn't. It led to the Director General having to resign, and the impact thereafter, not just in relation to the fallout for the BBC, but also in relation to the hospitals, in relation to Broadmoor. This was a man who was given such a status, and by the very people who could have stopped him, didn't stop him. And that's the one big issue. I mean, I didn't contribute to any of the recent programmes around Jimmy Savile. And the reason being is that there is still one programme to be made. And that is the programme that holds these people to account, who allowed him to get away with his offending behaviour for so long. Not one single person has been held to account for allowing him to continue. Now, of course, Savile was the man that did the offending. Absolutely no doubt about that. I wouldn't put that blame on anybody else. But there are other people who turned a blind eye, who enabled him to continue his offending when they could have stopped him.
How did he get away